Hi, this is Kristen Drysdale, and I want to talk to you today about gauge and color work. So I'm doing some color work mittens here, and the size of the mitten is determined by gauge. Gauge is the number of stitches that it takes to knit 4 inches, and it's 4 inches side to side or 10 centimeters and 4 inches up and down. So this is called the stitch gauge. This is called the row gauge. The bigger the stitch gauge, the larger the row gauge, if that makes sense. The smaller the stitch gauge, the smaller the row gauge. So the tighter you knit, the more rows it takes to knit to get the same measurement, right? So if you're working on something like a mitten that the stitches are finite, it's super important that you get the gauge right so that you are knitting the right size of width and length of a mitten. So there are several things that determine or can affect your gauge. Number one is the person that's knitting. That is the most important thing that can affect your gauge. The way I knit is different than the way you knit. And the way that, just because I recommend a needle size, that doesn't mean that's the needle size you are going to use. Sometimes when I'm teaching a class, I will have knitters that knit with like three sizes larger than mine. And I'll also have knitters knit 3 sizes smaller than mine to get the same gauge. So it's really a personal thing. Your gauge is like a fingerprint. It reflects the way you knit, the way you hold the yarn, whether you're a continental knitter or an English knitter, that will affect your gauge. So I can't tell you how important it is for you to determine the gauge for you. Okay, so some of the most important factors that change a gauge is who's knitting it, the yarn you're using, the needle you're using, and even there's little particular things like if you're working with wood versus metal, that will change your gauge. If you're working with a long cord on a circular needle, that will change your gauge compared to working on DPNs in a small circumference. So there are lots of things that can change your gauge, but you have to get a ballpark gauge to be able to cast on your project. So what I do is what I call a cheater swatch. I will cast on the number of stitches of the gauge that I am hoping to get of 4 inches, and then I just knit flat back and forth in color work. And then if I'm on gauge, if I measure it and I'm on gauge, then I know that I'm close at least. So this is what I did. For this original mitten design, I used raw Maastrichta yarn, and now I am using Fleece and Harmony Wild Wind, and these yarns are very, 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 very close. They both have, this one has 175, I think, yards for 50 grams. This one has 184 about. So they're very, very close yards on 50 grams. So they're very, very close. So what I did is I started on the same needle that I knit this one on, which was a US 0 or a 2.0 millimeter needle. And look, I cast on for this one. I wanted to get 34 stitches because I wanted to make a small mitten. On this pattern, I'll give you the gauge for different sizes of mitten so that you pick which size of mitten you want to make, and then you go for that gauge. So on this one, I was thinking I'll make a small mitten, a women's small. So I cast on 34 stitches, and look, if I measure this to here, this is 4 inches. The stitches are too small. So I just like jumped ship. I didn't knit a very big swatch. To get a really accurate swatch, you need to knit 4 inches, but I knew I was off. So I jumped up to the next needle size. This one, I decided that I want to make more instead of a small. I decided maybe I want to make a medium. So I'm going to go for 32 stitches over 4 inches. And so I cast on. This one I used a 2.25 millimeter, which is halfway between a 0 and a 1 in US sizes. And that one put me right on gauge. I also wanted to see what size of needle I should use if I wanted to make the same mitten for my husband. So this would be a 30 stitch gauge. And so I cast on 30 stitches. I bumped up to a US 1, which is a 2.5 millimeter needle. And this one is right at 4 inches. So now I have a ballpark. I'm gonna make the medium size. So I cast on the number of stitches in the pattern 64 for the cuff. I cast on 64 stitches and I started working in the round. Oh, before I get to that, let me tell you what I do when I'm doing a flat swatch. So I told you that I cast on the number of stitches that I want to do in a gauge, and then I work a checkerboard. This checkerboard is 2 stitches in white, 2 stitches in black all the way across. And then on the back side, on the purl side, it's the same thing. It's 2 purl stitches in black, 2 on white. So you're working white on white, black on black. It's pretty easy. You don't have to look on a chart. It's super easy to count because when you're counting stitches in this, you can count by 2s and it's easy to line up. So I really like doing a checkerboard swatch. And then so I made a checkerboard swatch, and then I moved to work on a project that is like, this is a new design actually. And so I'm using the 2.25 needle, and I cast on 64 stitches, which is the amount that the pattern tells you. And look, if I'm on gauge, it'll be 4 inches, and look, I'm right on 4 inches. So the only difference between this one and this, the biggest variable between this swatch that is a guess, think of it as a ballpark, kind of a guess swatch, a guess of just I'm guessing what needle I should use to the official needle I should use. The only thing that's really different is that this is knit in the round. Sometimes when you knit in the round, people knit a little bit looser than when they work back and forth. That's something to keep an eye out for. When you're knitting the real project, the most important thing I can tell you is that this one is guessing what needle you size. And so you are still trying out this needle on this, almost like a swatch. It's like a more official swatch because you're getting all the particulars right for the mitten. You're getting that you're knitting in the round. You're getting that you're knitting on, I'm working with flexi flips. I really like flexi flips to do sailboat mittens because in sailboat mittens, there's a pattern that is on the front, on the back of the hand, and then there's this completely different pattern for the palm. And so I really like flexi flips because you just have 2 needles that you're working with, and then you knit, of course, with the third one. But this keeps the back of the hand stitches all together. This keeps the palm stitches all together. And I think that it's easier on your hands to use flexi flips. You can also use DPNs and put 2 on the front and 2 on the back. But these kind of hurt my hands a little bit. On really small sizes, this is a US 0 or a 2.0 millimeter needle. So I really think that these are more comfortable. Anyway, those are my tips. But my big tip for you is that this one, think of it as like a guess. You're guessing the needle, and then you're you're confirming it by measuring. But then this one, the very first part of this is the true way to know that if you're on gauge. So just because this swatch tells you to use a 2.25, once you use it, you're knitting in the round, which might change it. So you have to double check your gauge to make sure that you're making the right size of stitch to make the right size of mitten so that your mitten will fit you. I really hope that this helps you a ton, and happy knitting.